Every nation on Earth has their own tales of mysterious things filled with superstition. They're more likely intended to frighten children into obedience, but adults get a kick out of being scared as well. Gone are the days of sitting around campfires and elders sharing folk tales. So in this digital age, we resort to movies to get our thrills. Today, we'll be diving into some well-known and some not so much heard of tales from the Chinese crypt. To properly start this story, we'll turn the clock back to May 1999, when a 13-year-old girl went to Hong Kong police to complain that a woman her boyfriend helped kill was haunting her. What, a 13-year-old had a boyfriend? I know, right? She described to the police a 23-year-old woman being tortured mercilessly while she was bound with electrical wire, unable to escape. After some convincing, police searched a third-floor flat on Granville Road 31, which turned up some chilling evidence, namely a large Hello Kitty doll stuffed with a woman's head. The victim of this heinous crime was 23-year-old nightclub hostess named Fan Manyi, who was abducted after she allegedly failed to repay a $20,000 debt. Fan had already been missing for roughly a year. According to various media reports, from that time, Ms. Fan was held captive for more than a month, during which time she was tortured daily until she died. Once dead, the men chopped her body into little pieces and disposed of it with the garbage. Some versions of the story claim the men also skinned and boiled her, but this is difficult to confirm. Her severed head was then sewn inside a Hello Kitty doll. When the story hit the press, it horrified Hong Kong residents and earned the strange but appropriate title, the Hello Kitty Murder. In the months following the murder, images of a shadowy female form lurking near the Granville Road 31 apartment were captured on various CCTV cameras. In some cases, the ghostly woman was spotted inside stores on the ground floor of the apartment, long after closing time. Residents in the apartment also reported unnerving sounds and even unexplainable ghostly flames, which eventually led to everyone moving out. The building sat virtually empty until it was demolished in 2012. The 3 men convicted for the murder were sentenced to life in prison for their crimes and won't be eligible for parole until 2020. Vengeful, decades-old ghosts roam the hallways of Zhongying building, located near the heart of Shenzhen, or so the rumors say. They're blamed for the failures of Zhongying's businesses, said to have a preternaturally short lifespan. And at last online, an otherworldly influence is cited as the cause for the complex's rock-bottom rent. The ghosts haunting Zhongying are said to date back to the bloody days of China's Cultural Revolution in the 60s and the 70s, when the site of the building was allegedly used as an execution ground. After Shenzhen's founding and rapid development, some say developers decided to capitalize on the cursed plot of land, hiring a specialist for advice on putting the ghosts to rest. That's how the office building ended up with 2 pointy towers that resemble candles, plastered over with auspicious rose-tinted windows. Naysayers point out that the stories serve the business interests of Zhongying's competition. The color may just be an unfortunate quirk, and the cheap rent a self-fulfilling prophecy. The ghost stories may date back to well before the modern rumors, however. According to Shenzhen native Wen Maozhang, back when the area was still Gangsha village, the site of Zhongying was a dumping ground for the bodies of those too poor or young to afford a proper burial. Local legends circulated about the childish or unhappy spirits said to reside there. In one story, the ghost hoodwinked a man passing by on his way home from a fishing trip, tricking him into mistaking the worms he'd been using for noodles. He wakes up the next day with mud on his face, the unsettling realization that he ate a bowl of squirming fish bait. Another superstition says the spirits are to blame for people getting lost in the area. The only way to ward off ghostly interference is to make a metal clanging sound by hitting a gong with nails, for instance. Despite her knowledge of local lore, Wen herself remains doubtful. After all, if Zhongying is haunted, Why aren't Shenzhen's many coastal properties, which are built on the shores where hundreds, if not thousands, allegedly perished while trying to swim to Hong Kong from the 50s to the 80s? Rumored to exist in the rocky and unforgiving Gobi Desert, the Mongolian death worm is unquestionably one of China's strangest cryptids. This particular creature is allegedly red in color, somewhere between 2 and 5 feet long, and is thick as a man's arm. It should be noted that 2 to 5 feet is the most commonly stated length. Some sources suggest the animal can grow to much greater sizes, specifically a short Animal Planet documentary that claims the death worm can reach lengths of up to 10 feet. Sometimes referred to as intestine worm because of its rigid intestine-like appearance, this creature is greatly feared by locals due to its highly toxic or possibly acid-like venom. According to local beliefs, the death worm has the ability to spray its venom from a reasonable distance, and the substance is powerful enough to kill a camel or a horse. Some tales assert that the worm can also use electricity on hapless passers-by. There have been numerous expeditions mounted to find the worm, including several that were filmed for television, but all ended up empty-handed. Reasons for these rumors, according to believers who note that many areas near the China-Mongolian border are difficult to access or restricted, and that the worm spends most of the year underground, only surfacing when it rains, which is just 2 months a year. According to Czech cryptozoologist Ivan Makarel, in his 1987 book Atyan Shajak Goft, it travels underground. Its movements can be detected from above via the waves of sand that it displaces. While most observers conclude that the death worm is simply a beast of legend, including Makarel, who mounted 3 separate expeditions in 1990, 1992, and 2004. Others have suggested it may be an undiscovered species of sand-dwelling snake. This suggestion is plausible, as snakes do come in various shades of red, and some species do have the ability to spit venom up to 2 meters. Regardless of the likelihood of its existence, the Mongolian death worm has found considerable attention worldwide, in books, television shows, and a 2010 film titled Mongolian Death Worm. So, is a terrifying species of worm lurking beneath the sands of the Gobi Desert? Millions of people drive past Yan'an Elevated Road, or Yan'an Gaojia, on a daily basis, getting stuck in traffic on this 15-kilometer-long expressway running from the Bund to Hongqiao Airport. This is a daily routine for many Shanghai residents. Ever since Yan'an Gaojia was open to the public in the mid-1990s, a certain legend focusing on just one specific part of the expressway, the Dragon Pillar. The legend has been circulating amongst locals. Located at the cross-section with Nanbei Gaojia near People's Square, the Dragon Pillar, unlike all other regular concrete pillars along the expressway, isn't just larger and thicker. It's also decorated with a metallic finishing, as well as 9 large bronze dragons and several smaller ones on its surface. The most widely known version of the story behind the Dragon Pillar states that back when construction workers were building this section of the expressway in 1995 and had to install the pilings needed for the foundation, they had trouble drilling to the required depth, and construction came to a grinding halt. As the story goes, to avoid further delays, government officials and the construction company invited several feng shui masters to take a look at the site, but they all refused to prescribe a solution. In the end, a monk from the Jade Buddha Temple, some say Longhua Temple, agreed to perform a religious ceremony. Before he left, the monk also asked the pillar to be decorated and covered with 9 dragons, because this very spot happens to be the resting place of the city's guardian dragon. After the ceremony was finished, workers were finally able to install not just 1, but 7 pilings at the spot, while the construction resumed without any major hitches. The monk who performed the ceremony was said to have died of unknown causes a few days later. Many believed his death was punishment for spilling the secrets on the dragon's home. While officials have repeatedly dismissed this as pure fiction, when it comes to urban myths in Shanghai, this is one every local has heard of. Many Chinese see it as no coincidence that the cursive-like character, Guang, outside of Leewan Plaza in Guangzhou, bears an uncanny resemblance to the word for corpse. Since 2004, about a dozen suicides have occurred on this premises, with some witnesses claiming that a supernatural force seemingly pushed victims over the railings. The mall's deadly curse, according to the local residents, began many years ago when it was first constructed. If you've ever watched Poltergeist, you know never to build on any ancient burial grounds. Home to a Qing dynasty sacrificial chamber, inspectors failed to notice 8 empty coffins when erecting Leewan Plaza, now a large jewelry market near Zhongying pedestrian street. Unearthed during construction, some say the coffins were the cradle of strange noises and mysterious deaths that kept storefronts ruinously empty. A sacrificial chamber, for those that don't know, is where when an emperor died, they would have killed or would have suicides be committed of servants, wives, concubines, animals, slaves, and soldiers, so they may serve the emperor in the afterlife, buried alongside him. Many servants and concubines would willingly drink poison, and their families deemed it a great honor. To counteract the malevolence, architects made the building resemble an octagon, like the Bagua. Eventually, a Taoist priest informed landlords that the empty coffins had originally been buried to thwart evil influences. The catch was that they were not to be disturbed for 1,000 years. Since then, several accidents have been reported, many on the 5th floor. Apparently, at least 2 of the landlords that managed the plaza have allegedly died suddenly of unknown causes. Despite Guangzhou's toasty climate, Chinese netizens claim it's always a few degrees cooler in Leewan Plaza. And just walking through the building at night, they say, brings a chilling feeling of despair. Regardless, the building's occupants now mostly consist of non-local business owners, happy to make a quick buck, while the silent roam around. Unexplained disappearances have always had a chilling effect on people. Many individual human disappearances can be chalked up to foul play, such as murder or kidnapping, while others simply run away for personal or financial reasons. The eeriest type of disappearances, though, are the ones that happen en masse, where a group of people seem to evaporate into thin air. The most recent, and arguably the most notorious, mass vanishing in Chinese history is the March 2014 disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, which vanished en route to Beijing with 227 people on board, 153 of which were Chinese citizens. While MH370 may be the first Chinese-related mass disappearance to come to mind, it might not be the earliest. According to various print and online sources, in 1939, during the horrors of Japanese aggression against the Republic of China, during the Second Sino-Japanese War, almost 3,000 soldiers stationed in the rolling hills around Nanjing disappeared without leaving a single clue to their fate. The incident began in December of 1939, or as early as 1937, depending who you talk to, when Colonel Leewan Plaza stationed 2,988 troops amongst Nanjing's hills, a 3.2 square kilometer area with a view to defend the bridge on the Yangtze River against the impending Japanese attack. When Colonel Lee awoke the following morning, he was told by his assistant that the soldiers at the defensive line were not responding to calls or signals. An investigation team was formed, and when they arrived at the troops' position, they found it completely abandoned. There was no sign of a struggle. The heavy weapons were still in place and ready to be fired, but nobody was there. Troops stationed at the bridge claimed that no one had slipped by in the night, and that they were unsure of the missing soldiers' fate. A major problem with the various online renditions of the story is the inconsistencies about when the mass disappearance took place. Some writers suggest the incident happened in December of 1937, in the immediate run-up to the battle, the subsequent rape of Nanking, now Nanjing, while others place the event 1939, roughly half a year after the siege ended. Is this story true, and did almost 3,000 soldiers disappear into thin air? That remains a mystery. On November 14, 1995, a dark and possibly stormy night, a young man boarded the last bus heading to Beijing's Fragrant Hills, located in the Haidian district. Shortly after the man boarded the Route 302 bus, two men tried to wave the bus down. According to 2013 Global Times article written by Wang Yu, a college student from Haidian district at the time, the bus driver was initially reluctant to pick the men up because they weren't waiting at a bus stop. However, the driver decided to stop after the conductor reminded him that this was the last bus. Once the mysterious roadside men were on board, passengers were surprised to see they were wearing Qing Dynasty robes and that they were actually three men, one with long messy hair, being supported by two roadside creeper vines. As the story goes, the men's faces were much wider than a normal person's, and they didn't interact with any of the passengers on the bus. Naturally, commuters were a bit uneasy with the whole situation, but the conductor cooled things over by telling them they were likely actors who had no time to change costumes after leaving work. Slowly, the bus began to empty of passengers until only an old lady and the young man remained inside with the mystery men. All was quiet until the old woman abruptly accused the man of stealing her wallet, a claim that resulted in an intense argument. The quarrel was resolved when the old lady insisted the pair get off the bus and go to the nearest police station. Once off the bus, the young man grew enraged with the old woman, realizing he had just got off the last bus and there was no police station in sight. Fortunately for the young man, the elderly woman picked up on something he had missed. The three robed men did not have any legs, and by default must have been ghosts. The wind coming in from the window raised the robes, and I saw they didn't have feet, the old lady told the man. The story never does divulge much what happened to the pair after leaving the bus. But if what happened next was true, then the young man owes the old woman his life. The following morning, the 302 bus was reported missing, and according to some variations of the story, it would be 3 days until it was found. The bus was eventually recovered in a reservoir miles away from its final destination at the Fragrant Hills, and inside it were three heavily decomposed bodies: the driver, the conductor, and one identified body with lengthy, unkept hair. There are a number of mysteries that surround this case, including the fact that the bus didn't have enough fuel to get to the reservoir and that the bodies were too heavily decomposed for the relatively short time they were missing. There have also been claims that the police officers scoured the security footage retrieved from the cameras around the reservoir and found nothing on it suggesting the bus was even there. Thanks for watching, everyone. This is Jack, signing off from Xi'an. I'll see you next time. 谢谢。